Hey everyone, Duncan here for MenuDocs and welcome back to the third PHP tutorial in the series. In this episode we are going to talk about functions. And functions are really easy. Let's just get started with an example. To create a function, you start with the function keyword. After that you give the function a name. For example, do thing. You do open and close parentheses and open and close curly braces. In your parentheses, you can pass in a variable. And the variable syntax, a var, for example, is the same as normal variables. In this case, our function is gonna do something extremely simple. It's gonna add the result of a var. So we are going to return a var plus 1. Now that we have written our function, we can just do a simple var underscore sum, and we can just say do thing free. We save this. We can open the terminal, PHP index.php, and as you can see, we have now the int 4. But what, for example, if we type in a string hello? We clearly want a number in here, and the plus sign is not how you concatenate strings. Let's see what happens. You get a fatal error. That's not good. So if you, for example, want a smarter error, if you have a smart IDE, which this is not, what you, for example, can do, can say I want an integer as parameter and an integer as return type. Meaning if we do this now, let's clear this, we get a different error. It's still a fatal error, but in this case it says a var must be of type int, string given, which is a bit of a nicer error to work with. So now we know that our function must always be an integer and it will just work. What PHP also has is anonymous functions. So let's rewrite this doThing function to an anonymous function. Let's just completely remove it. We're gonna keep the same name, but the anonymous function is of course a variable. So thing, doThing is fn. In here we're gonna say a var again. And this will again be an integer because we're gonna create the same function. What we will do is we do a equals and a left bracket. And this is where I will switch editors because my editor apparently formats this funny. One moment.
Today's video is proudly powered by our partner, Oxide Hosting. Get your products hosted by them with their cheap, reliable services. So what are you waiting for? Check them out in the description below.
Okay, and now that we are back in an editor that does display the syntax like a normal person would view it, we can just say a var and let's do plus like 5. As you can see here, it does give me a warning because undefined function doThing. By the way, what we just need to do is add the $sign in front of it, and as you can see, it will automatically recognize it. If we go over to our terminal and do php index.php, you can see we get int 12 because 7 plus 5, 12. And once you set your IDE settings correct, you will see that passing a string for an integer will actually result in an IDE error because this wants an integer. Also, you may have seen that we use the fn keyword in here instead of doing this. This was done for a design reason. As you may remember, in the previous episode, we made an array, and an array can have keys to values. Now a key can also, if you remember, keys can also be an external variable, and you can wrap them in parentheses. Now the only thing you can't do is put a type in front of them, but this already looks like a function, and because this could be very confusing syntax, the PHP developers decided to use the fn keyword. And before you start commenting, please ignore the strict type thing here. It's just a hint to PHP Storm to actually show errors if I do this. Because of course it wouldn't do that by default. Thank you, PHP Storm. But back on the topic of anonymous functions, they are super limited. Because, for example, what we can't do is wrap them in curly braces. This is invalid syntax. And that is done to prevent the abuse and misuse of arrow syntax. If you want an anonymous function that actually does this, you need to actually use the function keyword. Before we do that, let's make a variable called extra. That is 6. Let's do plus extra here, so we can see the difference between these anonymous functions and the older anonymous function style. So if we do alt fn, for example, type the function keyword. We don't give this function a name. Just do the curly braces. Don't forget to end with a semicolon because this is still a variable. And we just take an integer a var. Then we just return a var plus 5 and plus extra. Although you can see an extra here. Undefined variable extra. Any variables that are not created within the scope of a function, and this is not just anonymous function. Give it a weird name, urgent 5 plus extra. As you can see, even with a normal function, if a variable is not in scope, you can't use them in functions. Now there are two ways of dealing with it. The first one being the most ugly one, global, and then your variable name. This is a way of doing it. Please never do this, because this will just add a massive line of variables. Global, another var. This will just add too much clutter. What you want to do, let's make like I don't know, extra 3 and extra 2 as well. Just to demonstrate, what you want to do is use the use keyword, open close parentheses, extra 2 and extra 3, and you can just pass them along here, and we don't need ugly global keywords anymore. And of course, this works the same for the normal function. Now we can just do alt fn php index.php run. So please ignore what I said about the normal functions. Apparently that's only a thing for anonymous functions. And you do just need to, and you either will need to use the global keyword or pass them in as a variable. Functions are stupid, but it does do the scoping very well. Now we have fixed the script, you can see 5 plus 5 plus 6 is 16, and it is correct. What you can also do with anonymous functions is make them static. Now this won't do much in the context of this, but let me create a quick class for you and we can see the difference with it. So what I did, I quickly created a class in this PHP file. Don't worry about classes for now, we will tackle that in a future episode. But basically what we will need to do is just create a variable of this class and then just very easily call the foo method in that class. If we now run this code, you will be able to see the difference between a normal anonymous function and a static anonymous function. So what you can see is the first var dump here says object a class, and the second one doesn't print but gives us an error. And this is very important, because if you make a normal anonymous function in a class, and really keep this in mind, it will automatically bind the context to it. For small applications this is no problem. If you make a really big application in PHP, this can eat a lot of memory. So that is why it's always best practice to just make your anonymous functions inside classes static. And that is functions for this episode. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe to MenuDocs if you haven't already, and I see you next time with another PHP episode. Goodbye!